relevant page number and paragraph number.
Sorry, Chair, it's working now. I was using the wrong keypad.
Oh, thank you.
Chairman, we're ready to go.
Thank you. Welcome to Rochford District Council's remote meeting of the Audit Committee, and welcome to anyone watching this via the live stream. I'll start with agenda 1, apologies for absence. We have none in the office. Are there any other apologies? No?
Councillor Stanley's indicating, Chairman.
Councillor Stanley?
Thank you, Chairman. James Newport will not be attending. I shall be in his place.
Thank you. That is for agenda item 2, substitute members. So, okay, we'll move on to that. Agenda item 2, Councillor Stanley in place of Councillor Newport. Are there any others? Your hand's still up, Councillor Stanley. Thank you. Agenda item 3, non-members attending. Sonia will read out any non-members attending.
Okay, Councillors FD and Williams, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of November 2020. Are these agreed, members? I will assume so, unless anyone clicks on the raised hand icon.
Chair, if I may just say something there.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to bring to members' attention that we agreed at the last meeting that we would bring a report back in relation to the Redmond review recommendations. We've agreed to defer that until the next Audit Committee meeting, so there's no report on that on tonight's agenda, but that will be brought to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Right. Agenda item 5, to receive declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Before we go on to the rest of the evening's work, we have Debbie Hanson from EY, who is presenting item 8. Rather than her sit through the whole of the evening, because she has other things to do, would everybody agree that we move item 8 to the next item? Are you agreed?
Are you doing that as a motion?
Anyone disagree?
Yes, Chairman.
Anyone disagree?
Yes, Chairman.
Can we see if does anyone disagree with that?
Sorry, Chairman, I did ask if it...
No, it doesn't look like it.
Chairman, I think that Councillor Hoy is...
Sorry, Councillor Hoy, I can't hear you.
I think it... Yeah, I don't know why my hand isn't moving, but it was moving. No, I said, I assume this is a formal motion as required. I didn't hear who seconded it, that was all. I've got no problem with it. I just didn't hear who seconded the motion.
Councillor Merrick, I believe.
Chairman, I think that Councillor Mrs. Shaw has seconded that for you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I thought Councillor Merrick had.
I was just about to, Chairman.
So is that agreed, everybody?
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Sorry, may I interrupt, Chairman? I thought we had a protocol.
Right, thank you.
Sorry, Chairman, my hand was up and it's come down again. I I understood there was a protocol for agreeing things. Again, I've got no problem with agreeing to this, but I thought agreement was on the protocol that we've agreed. Agreement was agreed, and if someone disagreed, they put their hand up. I thought that was
I
how
did
it
ask for
was.
hands
Right.
up. You didn't have a hand up.
I think you misunderstand me. I don't know if my sound is playing up tonight or not. What I meant was, I understood according to the protocol for voting, I'm perfectly happy with agreeing something, but I understood that we only had to demonstrate non-agreement, otherwise we were taking to agree it. So we agree it unless we put our hand up. Is that correct? I don't know if it's worth confirming that with Sonia, that's all.
Chairman, that is correct. Agreement is assumed unless somebody raises their hand, whether by the blue hand or manually, if that's not working for them.
And I don't believe anybody's hand was up.
No, there aren't any hands up, Chairman.
Right. In that case, then I will go straight into item 8, which is the external audit indicative audit plan. Debbie Hanson from the Council's external auditors, EY, will introduce the report. Questions can be asked and answered afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for accommodating by moving the timing of the item. It's much appreciated because I've just come off another audit committee, so I'll be able to go and get something to eat after this. So this is our indicative audit plan. The reason it's indicative is we haven't yet undertaken all of our detailed planning for the 2021 audit. However, based on the discussions we've had with officers, based on our knowledge of the client from working with you for a number of years now, and based on our wider knowledge of the sector, we're comfortable that we can do a reasonable plan which has what we think should be the key risks that we need to address in our audit. There is one area of work that we haven't really been able to do much planning on, and that's about value for money conclusion, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail in a moment. What I'd like to do is really take the committee members through section 1 of the report, which is the overview of our audit strategy. So that starts on page 7 of your pack, and really that just highlights the key risks that we've identified in doing the planning that we've done to date, and the details of those risks and how they've changed from prior year. The members of the committee will see from looking at those that actually there is no real change in the risks that we've identified for 2021 compared to the prior year. But I will just take you very briefly through those risks. So the first one we identify is misstatements due to fraud and error. That's a risk that is included in all of our audit plans, and it's driven by auditing standards, and we have a set of procedures that we undertake to address that risk. Linked very much to that risk, we then also identify the incorrect capitalisation of revenue expenditure. And we always identify that in local authorities that have any sort of material levels of capital spend, and that's because that's a mechanism of getting expenditure out of revenue and hitting council tax and into the balance sheet, which can then be funded by capital reserves as opposed to revenue items. We then highlight and we move on to the areas which are our kind of inherent risks, so they're not our significant risk, but they're still areas of focus for us. The valuation of land and buildings, again, would always be an inherent risk. It's an extremely large balance in the council's accounts and is an estimate that's based on information provided by the council's valuers. I think one positive thing for Rochford is that if you had a material level of investment properties, we would be identifying that as a significant risk because of the impact that COVID-19 has had on that type of assets, which are valued by reference to the market. But we're comfortable that based on the makeup of the land and buildings the council owns, that we don't have a significant risk in that area. If we then move over page, we have the pension liability valuation, which again, very similar to PPE, is a very big number and based on estimates and assumptions. And so we engage our internal pension specialists to provide us with some assurance around that area. And then finally, we have going concern disclosures. This was a new area that we reported on last year in terms of increased focus, which was driven by two things. It was driven by the impact of COVID-19 on not just local authorities, but the whole economy and the uncertainty that brought, but also changes in the auditing standards, which required auditors to give greater focus to going concern assessments. So again, that's an area we'll be continuing to focus on in the current year. On the next slide, we just highlight to you materiality. We've set that at the same level as previous years, which is 2%. And then we've set performance materiality, apologies, at 75%, which is the maximum level we can set. And that recognises, I think, the significant improvements in the accounts that we've seen in the last couple of years, with very low level of errors coming through those, which enables us to set that at a higher level. If I could then just take members to page 19 of the report, which sets out value for money. So that's section 3. Really just wanted to highlight to you, because this is something that has changed this year. The NAO brought in a new code from the 1st of April 2020. So that applies to the 2021 financial year. And that makes some sort of fairly large changes actually to the work we do around value for money. One of the main changes is that previously we would have included in our audit report a conclusion on value for money, and that's an overall conclusion. We no longer do that, so we report purely by exception in the audit report on value for money. So we would only include comment in the audit report if we were qualifying your value for money conclusion. We also don't provide an overall commentary anymore. Instead, we are required to provide commentary on the 3 specified reporting criteria, which are set out on that slide. So that's financial sustainability, governance arrangements, and then improving economy efficiency and effectiveness. So that's quite a big change. And what we're required to report on that in a new form of audit report called the Auditor's Annual Report, which normally would be issued the same time as the audit opinion, but the NAO are looking at putting in a slightly later date this year to recognise the continuing pressures of COVID on auditors and local authorities. So we may be reporting that later in terms of the detail reporting on that area. So I think those are probably the main changes. What it does mean is that previously, if we hadn't identified a significant value for money risk, we would include very little in our reports to that effect. We would just say we haven't identified a risk, but now we need to include commentary on each of those areas, whether we have identified a risk or not. So that will drive more audit work and drive the need to engage more with the council around that new requirement. So that was really the main thing I wanted to draw to your attention. I'm very happy, however, to take any comments on anything in the report or any questions.
Councillor Lucas Gill.
Thank you, Chair. Debbie, you mentioned council valuers for council property. I assume these are external valuers employed or appointed by the council. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. The council uses a firm called Wilkes, Head and Eve to undertake their valuations, and so we undertake procedures to make sure we can rely on their work, and if necessary we engage our own internal valuers to review any more challenging or more difficult assets that we may come across.
Thank you.
Councillor Sperring.
Thank you, Chairman. Debbie, I don't know if it comes under your remit, but obviously, and it's not it's just a question. Obviously, the council's had to pay out lots of grants, etc. this year, or sorry, in 2020 under review. Does it come under your remit to monitor the way they've been paid and the integrity of the way it's been paid? I have to say, I've had no reason to question this. I'm just asking the question.
It would be an area that we will be looking at this year because, as you say, there's a number of grants that have been received by the council, some of which are to support the council in its own spending. So, for example, the grants to recompense the council for loss of income, which all councils have received. There are other grants that the council has received which you've very much been passporting and acting as an agent for. So that's payments to local businesses that have come through the council but wouldn't be reflected in the council's accounts. So the areas that we'll be looking at are those areas that are reflected in your income and expenditure. As part of that, we will obviously, as part of interrogating your ledger, we will see those in and out transactions. So we will be ensuring that they have been correctly excluded or correctly treated in the financial statements. But in terms of checking that those payments are being made appropriately to businesses or anything, or the controls around those, that wouldn't really fall within our remit. And I'm not sure whether Naomi might want to comment on that area, but we wouldn't be checking that the council has been applying the sort of controls and checks before paying out grants, which you're acting as an agent for.
Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose just add that there are a number of controls in place that MHCLG and other government agencies have checks and balances they put in place to make sure that we are paying out grants to businesses appropriately. So there is quite a high level of scrutiny around that, and quite a number of reporting requirements for us back to government. So there are a number of controls to make sure that those are being done appropriately.
Sorry, can I just add something? Yes, internal audit's been doing some sample checking of business grants paid out to businesses. So internal audit has done a number of work in that area. So we have been checking payments, to make sure they're valid.
Fine. Thank you very much.
And Councillor Sperring, are you happy with that?
Yeah, no, I say I wasn't being nasty about it.
Okay. Councillor Sperring, I didn't hear your answer. I assume that's okay.
Sorry,
Councillor Stanley next, please.
Hello, Chairman. Yes, could I just ask the question, is in the audit with the health and safety side of things, is there any arrangements now that, or since COVID, that arrangements that the officers are not working from the office or offices of RDC and working away in their own homes, and they obviously would have to travel backwards and forwards? Is that health and safety part being adjusted to suit?
If I just jump in there, if I may, Chair, I think there's obviously some wider risks and sort of issues to consider as part of the changes as a result of COVID, but I don't think that that's something that would fall under the remit of the external audit plan, but we could maybe pick that up if you've got specific concerns when we look at the internal audit reports we've got later on in the agenda, if you've got any specific concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I can't see anybody else wanting to ask a question. Is there anybody? Can you see anybody, Sonia?
No, no one's indicating, Chairman.
Chair, sorry to keep jumping in. If I may just say a word as well, in terms of the covering report for this, for the external audit for this year. I just wanted to draw members' attention to the change in the reporting deadlines that government have agreed and that passed through legislation this week. So the previous deadlines for preparing the accounts were 31st of May, with a deadline for the audit to be completed by the end of July, if possible. They have agreed for this year and for next financial year that there will be a 2-month extension to those deadlines. So the date for our accounts to be completed would be the end of July and to be audited by the end of September. Although members will note from the audit plan that's put forward, we are intending to have the accounts prepared by the end of May so that the audit can commence in June in line with EY's plan. But yeah, Debbie, I don't know if you wanted to just add anything more about that.
No, I think, as you say, we are looking to schedule our audits over a longer period, and actually we are not planning to complete all of our audits by the end of September because that's just not going to be possible. So our phasing actually runs to December, but the proposal we have at the moment is that Rochford is one of our earlier tranche of audits, and so hopefully that works in terms of the discussions we've had with the finance team about that fitting with your timetable as well. And obviously enables us to hopefully get the audit out of the way quickly and efficiently. But as I said, we are scheduling all of our audits over a longer period just because of the capacity to actually be able to do the audits properly. We need a longer period than currently in the legislation.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Debbie Hanson, for that, because I'm pleased to hear that we are going to be one of the first, because we did ask that we could get our audit done, in a timely manner this year. So thank you for reassuring us of that. So if there's no further questions, you've got The recommendation on page 8.2 is that the annual audit plan and addendum from 2020-21 be noted. Is that agreed?
Chairman, I think for clarity,
Is that noted, members?
I think if
Is that noted, members?
I think, Chairman, for clarity, if members could just, you know, we will assume agreement unless members raise their hand, please.
Councillor Merrick, are you able to raise your hand?
Yeah, yes, I am now, Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, you weren't earlier. I was just checking.
Thank you for that.
Right. Thank you very much, Debbie Hanson, for your presentation, and you are welcome to stay, but I think you need to get away now, don't you?
Thank you very much. And that's, again, it's really appreciated moving the agenda around. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Right, members. We now return to item 6, the Audit Progress Report 2020-21. Mike Porter, the Council's Chief Audit Executive Resources, will introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chairman. If I can direct members to 6.4 of this agenda item. One of the things I'll start by saying is that 2021 has not been a normal or typical year for undertaking internal audit work. Working remotely has brought a number of problems. I suppose that the normal audit approach is we want to establish a rapport with the audit client. So, and that's quite easy with face-to-face contact. So you go and sit with the audit client at their desk, you discuss the audit area under review, you ask a number of questions, they readily provide the evidence in terms of the information you want in terms of your testing. So it all works quite nicely. As I say, working remotely has brought a number of problems. Now we have to set up remote meetings. We have to basically put all our questions in emails and wait for a response. Sometimes that response is not forthcoming immediately, so we have to try again. So working remotely has brought a number of problems for us as internal auditors. What was also hoped this year in terms of assisting Jim in delivering the audit plan, it was hoped in Q4, so January to March of this year, that my audit team would assist Jim in delivering the audit plan for 2021. What's happened is that due to incompatible IT frameworks and IT systems, we're not being able to use our IT kit to log on to the Rochford portal. So Jim's been left to deliver the audit plan alone, unfortunately. That said, we've now gone through a process at Basel and rolling out new IT kit. So going forward, we should be able to support Jim in delivering the audit plan and next year's audit plan. That said, I mean, Jim's been working really, really hard over the last 9 to 12 months. And as you can see from 6.4, 1.2, he's delivered a further 6 audit engagements since November. 3 of those were rated as adequate, 2 as good, and 1 as limited. The limited audit review was related to risk management, and perhaps I'll pass to Jim now. He might want to say a few words about that audit.
Jim, I think you're on mute.
Apologies, Chairman, members. I forgot about that bit. If I draw your attention to the audit page 6.11, which is the report on risk management. Basically, we've given it as a limited assessment, not so much that the controls are not there, is that there's no real evidence of anybody physically looking at them to make sure they're being kept up to date. We've had a major changes in the working structure this year, people work from home, and there's no. And everybody has addressed the issues of working from home, but nobody's actually documented it to see if we've got any gaps that can be dealt with. And during our testing, it was very obvious that the half-yearly reviews of the risk registers were not done. I would like to just sort of draw attention to the last paragraph here, that there's supposed to be supposed to have been an update of full service area risk registers in January under a new format. As it stands at the moment, still only 16 of 29 risk registers have been updated, and so there is no reason for us to change the assessment going into this annual annual governance statement as at the current position. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, coming back to the plan item itself. As I said earlier, with limited resources available, what we've had to do is essentially reprioritise the audit plan and look at actually what audits we need to undertake to enable me to provide an opinion at year end. So provided in closure 2 is a list of the last year's audit plan and what audits we have undertaken and which audits we are yet to complete. So this gives a full picture of those audits we will complete this year. And that will enable me to provide my opinion on the council's arrangements with governance, risk management, internal control. So the audit plan itself is a mixture of, like, I suppose, must-do audits. We must do those audits to provide an annual opinion, and those more of a consultancy nature, I suppose, nice to do audits, something that the service management has said, can we take a look at this? But it doesn't necessarily materially alter my opinion at year end. If I can move on to counter fraud activity. One of the things we have been doing is supporting the Revs and Bends section in terms of the examination of business grants paid out. So what we've done is undertaken a sample checking of the business grants that paid out. We haven't found any issues or concerns in relation to the business grants paid out, nothing to suggest that frauds happened. In relation to counter fraud, the senior compliance officer has been undertaking quite a lot of work in the area of fraud and has generated significant savings for the council, particularly around council tax and unbilled properties. And as we can see, as reported on 6.4 2.2, he's achieved £112,000 worth of savings. I suppose the other thing to note in relation to counter fraud activity, the senior compliance officer based in Revs and Bends has been recognised nationally and has been given an award in relation to his work in relation to counter fraud. So just moving on to the last area of my report, and that's in relation to internal audit recommendations. We only have 8 current live recommendations. 3 of those in terms of the due date have been pushed back, but we accept that managers may have other priorities owing to COVID. So implementing audit recommendations may not be top of their list of things to do, but we accept that and we are working with them to implement those recommendations. Since November, reports committee, we've only issued one further recommendation. I'm quite happy to take any comments or questions in relation to that report.
Any questions, members? Councillor High.
Sorry, Chairman, it took me a while to get my mute unmuted. Just a very quick one. I was on page 6.15, I think. So I'm dashing off one screen and it can be a bit awkward getting to the right place. Yeah, 6.15. No, 6.14. We're referring to the final paragraph on page 6.14, where we did an email phishing exercise and 10% of the staff emailed opened a link on an external email. I'm quite concerned that was so high, and I'm quite concerned that there doesn't have seen much action beyond reminding them of their responsibilities and asking them to do additional training. I think we do have a number of staff joining and leaving on a regular basis, and I just wonder if this is really an adequate response to quite a high level of people opening their emails in this way, opening attachments on emails.
Chair, do you want me to? Oh, sorry, Mike. I was just going to quickly say something there, if that's okay.
Yeah, certainly. Go.
Yeah, as I'm the kind of council's senior information risk officer, and I do accept your concerns, Councillor Hoy, about that phishing exercise. I do work closely with the council's IT manager, and she has rolled out a number of initiatives to try and improve the kind of response to these kind of exercises. As you referred to, we have had some specific training recently run by a member of the police who came in and provided some awareness training. And in addition to that, the leadership team, including myself, have followed up specifically with individuals who did open the email to make them aware of the issue. So it is something we take seriously and are following up proactively to continue to raise awareness. I think that's probably the biggest thing we can do, is just to continually keep this fresh in people's minds and make them aware of the risk, and as I say, to continue to train people on that risk. But yeah, Mike, I don't know if you wanted to add anything further to that.
Yeah, we have run similar exercises at Basildon Council, and 10% is probably about the norm. It is about education and training. There will always be those of people who just click and don't think about the ramifications or what the content of the email is. But it's just about training, and then carrying out further exercise to determine whether the percentage rates actually comes down, and then educate. It's all about education and training. There's little more you can do, to be honest.
Right, thank you. Sounds yeah, from the report it sounded like you weren't doing as much as you are doing, so that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question, really. Just how much of the audit is still to be finalised? I understand from Mike that some of the audit is not being completed. Obviously, how can we sign off the audit if it hasn't been completed? When will it be completed, does he think?
Okay, yeah, all those audits necessary for me to provide an opinion year end will be completed before my annual report. So basically, by about April, all those audits will be completed. So there's audits that I need to complete or need to have completed to provide that opinion. There are some audits, as identified in closure number 2, that we are deferring until next year. So we won't undertake those until next year. But they're not important in terms of me providing an overall opinion year end. So the key pieces of work will be done by year end. Those are the ones that will enable me to provide my opinion. And as I said earlier, there are certain types of audits that there's audits that must be done, or I say must be done to give that opinion. And then there's those audits that it won't matter what the result of that audit is. It won't affect my overall opinion on the council's arrangements with governance, risk management, or internal control. So coming back to it is basically we will do all the necessary work required to enable me to provide an opinion that then feeds into the annual governance statement. There won't be anything not done to provide that opinion.
Okay, thank you.
What further I can add is a risk-based audit plan. All the audits that are highlighted as significant risk will be undertaken.
May I add something here, please, Chairman?
Sorry, was that someone speaking?
Yes, Jim from the audit team. May I just add a point here?
Yeah, yes, please do.
Thank you. It's just since we put the audit reports to finalised, 2 further key audits have been completed, and I anticipate another 2 financial ones being completed early next week. So we're trying to make progress on what we consider to be the important ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that answered your question, Councillor Stanley?
Yes, thank you very much.
Councillor Sperring.
Thank you, Chairman. Mike, you mentioned that Basildon are rolling out some improved or different IT so that we're more compatible with each other. Let's hope we never have to go into another lockdown, but you know, we can't just totally disregard that anymore, I'm afraid. And will this mean that the compatibility and the working relationship will considerably improve, and that things that you've pushed over to next year will be able to be accommodated with because of the new closer interface between the IT systems?
Yes, what I can do, I can give you assurance that will be the case, because I've taken delivery of my new IT equipment last week, and I'm currently using that, and I've been able to access the Rochford portal over the last few weeks. So what we're doing is now rolling out to the rest of my team and just checking actually they can sign on to the portal. It's all down to security, both sides. For some reason, there's some incompatibility in relation to the security settings. So I suppose it's over secure in a way, because I could always get onto the Rochford portal using my own personal laptop, but that's not considered secure enough. And because of the increased security arrangements on our works laptops, if you like to put it, we can't sign on to the Rochford portal. But if I use my old, Stone Age personal laptop, I can get onto the Rochford portal. So I think it's basically, we're being overcautious in terms of our IT security, and therefore they don't talk to one another. But unfortunately, unlike Rochford, who rolled out their new IT kit prior to lockdown, someone must have had a crystal ball at Rochford. I don't know how it happened. But
it's sitting in the bottom corner.
Someone was getting paid lots of money and was rubbing their crystal ball because they was very clever. So Rochford took delivery of a new IT kit prior to lockdown, but us at Basildon have been working on rubbish for the last 12 months. But we are now going through a complete rollout of IT kit. So yeah, going forward, things will be back to normal.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Councillor Lucas Gill.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of months ago, I received an email, supposedly from the IT department, telling me I needed to change my password. I did check with IT, and they said, no, it hasn't come from them. But I do believe some members actually went through and changed their password. Has that affected our security? And I don't know if Councillor FD would like to come in on this.
I can't comment because I'm not aware of the specific incidents or how that has progressed. I don't know whether Naomi or Jim can comment on that.
Chairman, funny enough, the phishing exercise where we had the 10% of staff clicking was based around changing of passwords, but there was enough in there to sort of say it wasn't from us, but people did open it, and this is where the education element continues to become important.
I think Councillor Lucas Gill, if I may, I think we might need to just check with the IT department, because I'm not sure if members were actually part of that phishing exercise or whether that was a genuine kind of scam attempt. But I don't think any of us here have the details of that, so I think we'll have to come back to you separately on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, I did speak to the IT department before I did anything, and they confirmed that it wasn't from them. So I deleted the email straight away.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, I think that Dawn Tribe notified all councillors that it was a phishing and also a scam exercise that was going on, and it wasn't an exercise from RDC, and to take no notice of it. I think we all had emails to that effect.
Yes, I think Councillor Stanley, I remember something of that sort with an email coming from Dawn Tribe. I can't.
We've had no dangerous effect from that with the council IT system.
Well, I think all we can say, Councillor Gill, is that Lucas Gill, sorry, I'll double check with the IT department, but I think I would be aware if there had been a genuine kind of IT security breach that affected members. So I don't believe there is an issue of that nature that has been affected members. So I will double check that for you outside the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Right, I can't see anybody else wanting to ask any further questions. What I would like to say is to Mike Porter is well done on the member of staff getting the award, and thank you, Jim, for all your hard work with what you've been doing as well.
Thank you.
So members, at paragraph 9.1 on page 6.2, there are 3 recommendations which are all for noting. 1, that the update on delivering the 2020-21 audit plan be noted, which is enclosure 1. 2, that the conclusions and results from completed audit engagements in appendices 2 and 3 be noted. And 3, that the updated status of audit recommendations in appendix 4 be noted. Is that noted, members? If not, can you raise your blue hand, please?
Chairman, that's noted.
Right, thank you. Item 7, that is the audit plan and charter for 2021-22. Mike Porter, Chief Audit Executive, will introduce the report. Please.
Thank you, Chair. What I'll start by saying, we've not included the charter. I had a quick look at the charter and there's no changes from last year. So we're not bringing it to members for this year. So there are no changes to be made. In terms of the audit plan itself, the audit plan is essentially a program of work for the new year and sets out the audits we are looking to undertake during the course of 21-22. The audit plan itself is structured around the council's corporate risks. I suppose one of the things is, I suppose it links to the previous item in terms of delivery of the audit plan. So we're learning from our mistakes. So in terms of this year's audit plan, or the audit plan for the new year, we're not setting out all the audits we could undertake, because the audit plan is essentially a living document in itself. It can change subject to new and emerging risks. So rather than set out all the audits we were thinking about, all the audits we could possibly deliver, knowing they may change, we'll setting in the plan at the moment all the key areas we need to undertake for that audit opinion I referred to earlier. So at the moment, the audit plan is the key areas we're going to undertake some work on, the musts. At some point in time, we may add to the audit plan in terms of those other areas we may want to look at. But at the moment, we're not setting out our stall for the whole year. This is because it's a living document, the audit plan, it may be subject to change. These are the key audits we must undertake for that annual opinion year end. So as I said, it looks at the corporate risks facing the councils, and we consult with the senior management in terms of actually what audits they might want to put in the audit plan. I do some horizon scanning in terms of what are the new emerging issues facing the internal audit, what are the key areas we need to look at. I suppose a bit like external audit, what are the risks now facing the council? What are the council's key objectives and priorities for the new year? And that's how we come up with the audit plan. I'm quite happy to take any questions around the audit plan.
Councillor Michael Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't sure if I was muted or not then. This is fun. I I suppose it's the same question as every year, really. I seem to ask this question, and I do wonder if there's going to be a year when we actually do have a full internal audit staffing available to us. I take on board what you say, and that you're happy in that you can, or we can, perform internal audits over the areas which are the highest risk. And again, when you look at the plan, you've said it's not complete. There'll be more things to add on there, and as it's a living document, and it does look quite full. However, that does give me concerns that we've been doing this now for quite a few years. We never seem to have the staff to do anything beyond the most important areas, which is fine. I understand the most important areas, but that does mean that there's going to be some areas, presumably, which have not been looked at for some time because we're looking at the high risk areas. Is that a cause for concern or not?
I would say probably not a cause concern, because all audit plans put forward by most local authorities are risk-based. So if it's not a high risk, then it's not an issue. It's not going to give you any concern. You don't need to look at it because the ramifications of not looking at it are pretty quite low. So you're going to look at the areas that they might cause problems or lead to issues in the future. So those areas that you don't look at probably once every 3 years, no, they're not a cause of concern, because it's not going to cause you financial loss or reputational damage to the council. So you could ask, why do I need to look at it? It's not going to create a financial loss. It's not an IT issue. It's not reputational damage. You know, it might be some, I don't know, surface improvements or efficiencies that you could put forward as recommendations. But beyond, I suppose, surface improvements and efficiencies in practice, no, there's not a lot else. There are no control weaknesses to be identified. So in reality, it's something, I suppose, in the way the service department itself could look at. They could look at its own operationals in-house and go, well, I need to improve these areas. It doesn't necessarily need an audit. So you could, they could undertake a form of self-assessment, if you like. So internal audit is about looking at those high-risk areas and doing those audits. I suppose on the plus side, Becky will be coming back from May. So we will be back up to the 2 auditors, and as I said earlier, now we've got IT kit, we can hopefully support Jim in delivering the audit plan. I suppose lack of resources and staffing is a national issue. Even in the big audit firms are struggling to get staff in to deliver those external audits, and internal audit is similar. We are struggling to get high quality auditors. They're not out there anymore. And the ones that are out there, you're going to have to pay a premium to get them. We could buy in audit days from some of those companies, but IT audits are in the region of £1,000 a day. So you're not going to get many days for your money. I think normal audit work is around £750 per day. So again, buying it in, it does cause some problems in terms of, do you have the money to pay for it? But I think we are still able to deliver those key audits necessary, for my opinion. So I'm quite happy.
Okay, thank you. On that basis, then, where we have requests from management for an internal audit to look at certain areas, such as the vehicle maintenance, for instance, is that really a job for internal audit then, or as you say, should that be more of a service review internally by that?
Yeah, I mean, we do audit is one of those areas where we tend to engage in consultancy work, and we do assist service departments to review areas. It's part of our, I suppose, collaboration and cooperation. We don't like to just be seen as the nasty auditor that comes in and tells you you're doing something wrong. So we like to, I suppose, build a positive relationship with the audit client. And if they ask for a bit of work further down the line, if we undertake an audit, they're more likely to cooperate. So it's I suppose it's a mutual thing in a way. We will undertake some work of consultancy nature just to build that relationship and say, it's not all about audit work and key financials and things like that. So we like to try and be supportive. If resources allow for that, then we will undertake that work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Just relating to what I've said earlier on the health and safety side of the audit, things have changed drastically with new officers now in the employment of RDC. With those working from home, what health and safety have we altered in the audit to in light of the employment of these new officers?
Well, we haven't necessarily undertaken any audit work in relation to health and safety and remote working. So, I think Jim and Naomi could probably comment on what the organisation is doing in terms of people working from home and the council policy on that. But we have not audited the arrangement, so I will have to defer to my colleagues to see if they can provide some answers.
I suppose the answer maybe to your question, Councillor Stanley, is that health and safety is obviously one of our corporate risks and is something that is potentially on the plan for next year, where there is a change in the ways of working. Obviously there is potentially increased risk associated with that, and I think that's something that as part of the internal audit they would scope any changes in working practices and risks associated with that, and they could perhaps test some of that as part of the health and safety audit that's on the plan for next year. So I don't really want to sort of preempt or pass judgment on the effectiveness of any controls that are in place, but certainly it is something that has been discussed and is leadership team and you know, health and safety officer and HR are aware that there is potential changes and risks associated with changes to working practices. But I would just, yes, advise that that's something we'd probably look at as part of the scope of the audit that's planned for next year.
In relation to what I was thinking was that obviously officers now will have to travel from home to wherever they need to go to, whether it is the council offices to get information or whatever the case is, and in the future they will begin to travel a lot more in their vehicles, and that they're no longer in a office, if you like, that they can work from for 8 hours or whatever the case is. And this is where the risk will be, I think, will be greater because of that. Yes.
Okay, well, I'm not sure the council is necessarily liable or culpable for employees as they're going to and from work, but I'm not a health and safety expert. So I suppose what I'm saying is that, yeah, there is some changes in working practices, but I think we would need to assess the risks associated with that and review the procedures in place for that. But yeah, I don't really want to pass comment before that work's been undertaken.
No, I mean, we can scope the audit accordingly.
Naomi, can I ask?
Can I just say, I think that we need to identify that as quite a high risk now, because we would obviously there'll be the officers would be insured, but as it stands at the moment, are they of the same? Do they have the same cover as they would do if they was at council offices as where they are now in their own homes?
Okay, thank you. We've noted your comments. Thank you, Councillor Stanley.
Yeah, Naomi, I just wanted to ask: have the staff been assessed in their home environments for their seating arrangements when working at their computer? Because I know a lot of companies have had a look at this for, you know, making sure that their posture is correct, they've got the right working seats and desks and that. And I wondered whether our staff had that opportunity. Thank
you, Councillor Butcher. Again, I'm probably not the best person to advise, but I am certainly aware that we have reissued or made available the sort of self-assessment guides and manuals about working from home to make sure that people can self-assess if they have any specific risks or needs when working from home. And we have encouraged staff, if they've got any particular concerns or any particular needs, that they have been in contact with our health and safety officer and HR departments. And certainly we have delivered quite a lot of equipment from the office to people's homes to enable them to work in a safe and comfortable environment. So it is something that's certainly been on leadership's team's agenda, and we have made every effort to make sure that people can work safely from home.
Oh, thank you, Naomi, for that. I just wanted to check, because I know a lot of companies do that, and I wanted to make sure that we had enabled them to self-assess and ensure that they say their posture is right. They're not going to give themselves back difficulties in the future. Thank you. All right, any further questions? I can't see anybody. Yes, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Surely all this discussion comes under risk assessment, which will be carried out at the appropriate times. Just an observation.
I don't know if Mike wants to comment, but I would just agree. I think as part of the audit remit for all of the work we do, at the start we scope what are the risks, and then we would sort of judge the work programme accordingly to that. So I just would concur with what you said. Thank you.
Yes.
Right, I see no further questions. So at paragraph 9.1 on page 7.5, there is one recommendation which I will move from the chair, that the proposed audit plan and charter for 2021-22 be approved. Do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Merrick. Right. Please unmute yourself now and tell me if you're not able to use the electronic hand icon, and raise your hand manually so it can be counted. If anyone would like a recorded vote to be taken, please click on the raise hand icon once.
Chairman, no one's indicating.
Thank you. So there is no recorded vote. So voting will be done by an electronic show of hands. All those in favour of the recommendations, please click on the raise hand icon once.
Chairman, that's fine.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. That's carried. That concludes the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and have a good evening.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.